Hi, welcome to the Voice of Bold Business Radio. It is Tuesday, March 27th, and I might as well just come out with it because there are people that are out there, they're like, why aren't you talking about this, Jessica? Including my mother. My mother called me this morning to say, happy birthday, darling. Make sure you talk about it on the radio. So there you go. You have it. Happy birthday to me. And it's a program about birthdays. It's a program about businesses that make it a decade. Why aren't you talking about this, Jessica? And somebody I'm hearing in the background. My mother called me this morning. So we're going to hang out and figure out why I might be echoing. But I'm going to go. Thank you, Scott. And then, so we're talking about businesses that have made it to 10 years and 12 years and 15 years. We're talking about what it takes to get there. We are talking about the exhilaration and the fear and the fun of the journey with Adam Proehl, who is a partner at NordicClick Interactive, which is a full-service digital agency helping clients use the online channels to grow their businesses. And why does this matter? It matters because we're all on our own journey. It matters because we have the ability to take control of our own destiny with the work we do and the way that we show up every single day. So being based out of Minneapolis, Adam's a 20-year veteran in the online marketing world, and he cut his teeth working for Digital River, a global e-commerce provider, which, by the way, he and I go way back to Digital River. That's where we first met. And then he spent 9 years working on client accounts and projects with Symantec, Autodesk, Motorola, Connectix. Adam has also spoken at several industry events over the last few years, including SES, SMX, PubCon, where he's been a multiple speaker I saw, OMS, B2B, eMetrics, MSN Search, and MDMA. He's also a past instructor at the Online Marketing Institute at the University of San Francisco. You will get to meet him right after this.
Welcome to the Voice of Bold Business, the show that provides everything smart leaders need to evaluate situations, build relationships, and create solutions. Jessica Dewell candidly talks about the skills necessary to build tenacity and do more with less. And now, here's Jessica.
Thanks. Welcome back, everybody. I love that intro. It's one of my favorites. And Adam and I, in complete and utter transparency, we don't get to hear it. So it's total silence over here for a few minutes, isn't it, Adam?
I'm sure it was great, though.
Yeah, you get to see it.
There's nothing awkward about that at all.
How are you today?
I'm good. And by the way, that echo, I don't think it was anything audio related. That's the hearing. That's kind of, as you get a certain age, that's kind of the first thing that you start hearing echoes and things like that. So
doggone it. I'm telling you, well, good to know. So I'm a little ahead of the game on hearing my own voice and talking to myself, but on par with just hearing other things that aren't me.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'm doing great. So
I'm so glad. Good. I'm so glad you're doing great. So, do you have a cup of tea? Do you have a cup of coffee? Something? I always like to ask that.
I have some little bit of water here this morning. I've already had 2 cups of coffee. So,
in a branded mug.
Brand, so it's a shameless plug here. So.
We got to have the shameless plugs. Do you want to know something really funny? So I was wearing the Red Direction logo is a big circle with an arrow in it. Yep. And wasn't there a cartoon called, I think it was called Black Panther? No, that might be the movie that just came out. Black Cat. Movie, yeah. Do you remember Black Cats or something, or Cat something? Thunder Cats? I don't know.
Cats?
Might be that. I've had 3 people come up to me I'm wearing that shirt asking me about this cartoon, and I'm feeling a little pop culture awkward because I don't know what that is. But apparently my logo looks like
YouTube. Look it up.
That's the internet marketer. Well, thank you. Okay, so let's talk about, we're going to just jump right in because really surviving and thriving is the program that we're working with today. And I just want to jump right in. What were 2 things for you and your partners that got you to this 10-year mark?
Wow. Well, actually, it's 10 years plus now, so we
I
technically just
know.
celebrated 11 years.
Yes.
So it's crazy. Yeah. Um, I guess number one, you have to have a certain level of persistence. I mean, you do, because you have to. You're gonna get roadblocks when you venture off on your own. You start a company, start a business. You give up that safety and that security of having a paycheck every 2 weeks, the benefits, all that good stuff. Um, it's not always going to be roses. You're going to have to you have to give yourself a mindset that you have to persist, because there are down days. I guess that's one, and kind of related to it is I've never really been a big fan of the whole crush it mentality. Like, what are you doing today to crush it? Because let's be honest, not every day is a crush it day. Some days you just want to live to fight another day. And so I think you have to be persistent. I think you also have to you also have to be open-minded and be able to listen to those that are around you and trust the people that you hire. One of the best piece of advice, business advice I ever got, was to hire smart people and then get out of their way. And there's a lot of truth to that. And so hire people that are smarter than me, and then just get out of their way. Be there for them when they need you, but otherwise just get out of the way. Is that?
Yeah. You know, yes, I wonder if that particular piece of advice came from the same person in our past, because I heard that a couple of different times. Because, when we first crossed paths, I was a kid and I had a lot to prove.
You were a kid. I was a kid too, though, compared to now.
We were both kids. That's true.
I was
And
20
I
years
like
ago. I
that,
was a
that we
kid
were
then
both
too.
kids and we were having a good time. And we were crushing it most days. And the days that we weren't crushing it, we knew it, even as part of a larger organization. And so to hear you say that, some days we're just trying to get to the next day.
Yeah, that's it.
I think that's real. And when we embrace the reality of it, when we have the days we can crush it, we really know what that's like and how we can embrace that too.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, one of the things that, I had to learn how to do I went from working for a public company that grew very fast during my time there. I think by the time I left there in early 2007, I think it was like there was 1,200 employees, 1,500 employees, something like that. It was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of offices around the world. I kind of risen in the ranks a little bit there, and back to starting my own company, where it was basically myself and two other partners, and we had to do everything from taking out the garbage to doing the bookkeeping to going to get office supplies and stuff like that. And it's liberating and humbling at the same time, because I could no longer turn around and have somebody do something for me. It was like, that was it. It's like, who's going to do this for me? It's like, oh, I guess it's me.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Isn't that cool though, to know that you had those skills just right there waiting to be utilized?
Necessity is the mother of invention, right?
Cheers to that, Adam.
There was nobody else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, okay. So how did your partnership form? I know there are three of you in a partnership. How did that come together?
Well, ironically, it all dates back to Digital River. So basically, my two business partners, we met at Digital River back in 1998, and we just struck up a friendship. We kind of hit it off. We would actually, kind of funny story. So back then, I know people still do this. People would like go out and take smoke breaks for 10, 15 minutes. And so we decided, you know what? So Mike brought in a football. And so we decided, you know what? Instead of taking a smoke break, we're going to go out and toss the football around for a little bit. That's our smoke break. So we would do that like almost every day when the weather was nice in the summertime. That'd be our smoke break. And then we just kind of struck up a friendship there, and we all went our separate ways in 2000. My two business partners, they went to separate companies. I stayed at Digital River for another 6-7 years after that. But during that time, we all kind of swore we'd get back together and maybe start a business someday. It took a little while to do it. The timing just ended up being right in late 2006, 2007. I'd spent 9 years at Digital River. They were very good to me. I have no complaints.
They're incredibly good.
What's that?
I said they're incredibly good.
It was incredibly good to me. I mean, I'm very thankful for the experience I had there. But 9 years, it was time for a change. And I was ready. And then it turned out both those guys were ready as well for various reasons. So we decided to get together, and our first objective really was just to kind of consult, and we didn't really want to have real jobs, to be honest with you. That was kind of motivation too. At least I didn't. I'd had it up to here with a real job, and so we just wanted to consult and make some money, have some fun doing it. Maybe it was a little bit more lifestyle-ish when we started, be able to enjoy our summers and work on our own terms, and just kind of built from there. So
interesting. So it started out as a lifestyle and turned into a business?
Probably a good way to look at it. Yeah. It did. It kind of started as a lifestyle. I mean, we still maintain some elements of the lifestyle piece because where I live. You've been to this state many times. The summers are awesome, but they're short.
Awesome.
They're amazing, but they're short.
Yes.
And so I'm someone who likes to enjoy the summers and that type of thing. But we turned it from a little bit of a lifestyle consulting gig into something that's a long-term sustainable business.
Was knowing that wasn't necessarily your original intention, when did it become clear that not only did you have the capability, you also had the desire to continue to actually go, oh, let's turn this into a business. Let's make this a thriving business.
Yeah, I think what we found too was, we started getting client opportunities that needed maybe more than we could deliver on just as the three of us.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of early on, it's kind of funny. It was a strength, but it was also kind of a weakness. Because it was a strength from a standpoint of, okay, it's Adam, Mike, and Jeff, we're seasoned pros working on this. It's not your business is not getting shuffled off to some junior person who doesn't know what they're doing. It's seasoned pros. That was a plus sign. But the negative piece was, well, it's just three guys, Adam, Mike, and Jeff. It's just three of them. They don't have any other capabilities, can't do anything beyond that. We started to find client opportunities where it required us to expand both our capabilities as well as our depth and our ability to, just to deliver. And so for us to be able to scale effectively, as every entrepreneur eventually realizes, one of your first tasks should be to replace yourself. You really do, for lack of a better word. You have to be able to replace ourselves. Where it kind of hit home was probably, I suppose, year 3 or 4, somewhere in there. Each of us would take, family vacations in the middle of the winter because, again, where we live, it's cold. If you want to survive it, you kind of got to get away for a week or two in the wintertime.
Mm-hmm.
But in doing that early on, it was like I was always on. So always checking the email, always checking the phone, things like that. Once we started having some staff in place, it was like I was able to go on a vacation, like be gone to 10 days in Kauai. And I'm like, I didn't have to check my email. Everything went smoothly. When I was there, I could actually get away and do things. And it started to scale. And I think it also, there's also a big satisfaction. When we really wanted to, hiring staff, seeing them grow as professionals, seeing them succeed, there's a big level of satisfaction in that I don't know if I expected that or not. And that's been kind of one of the most rewarding things. Like you hire somebody and then, the first employee that you hire, and then they come to you and they're like, oh, hey, yeah, just a heads up, you might get an employment verification call from my mortgage broker because I'm buying a house. And it's like, wow, that's cool. And then you think about that for a second, say, okay, somebody is buying a house because of a business that I helped start. That's pretty freaking cool.
It's more than cool. It's freaking cool.
Yeah, when you see things like that. You did not have to beep that, by the way. See, freaking.
That's right. No bleeping needed.
No bleeping needed. It's cool.
It is.
So, it's kind of rewarding. So I guess that's probably a roundabout way. I don't know if I really answered your question or not, but
you did. And in fact, you answered 2 or 3 of my other questions. So we can just take those right off the table. And I've got to think of something else to ask you now. Because it's, in that evolution, were those times rocky when you were seeing the shifts where you were like, I don't really want to be checking my email, but I have to. Oh, wow. Can I really let go because nobody's actually emailing me? Are those hard times?
You have to succeed. You have to be okay delegating. You have to be okay letting somebody else basically do what you once did.
Mm-hmm.
And It is a little bit the first couple times. I mean, it's a little bit like teaching your kid to drive. You kind of gotta, you have this tendency to want to keep your hand on the wheel.
Yeah.
But you can't. You have to let your kid take the wheel and drive. You just do. So yeah, it is a little bit. I think it varies by personality though. I mean, I did have some experience. My past experience at Digital River, I was a manager there, so I was accustomed to delegating. The other two partners had varying degrees of delegating, and we've had people in the office that some have been really good at delegating, some not so much, more of a struggle, but it's something you kind of have to get over. And one of the biggest things is, I mean, everybody has a different style for how they write, how they present, how they talk about something. Sometimes the biggest hurdle is just, look, this employee may have a different presentation style or a different writing style, but if they're the one actually presenting or delivering the report or delivering the study to the client, let them run with what they're comfortable with. Don't try to force them to do it the way you do it. Mm-hmm. Just because they might do something differently than you doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just different. It's a different style, a different writing style. I mean, yes, spelling and grammatical errors, yes, correct those, fix them, okay? But if it's just a different style or a different way of presenting something, as long as, I tend to be a little bit more flexible on that, because to me, the important thing is just the substance of it. What is the substance of what we're delivering to the client? Is the substance there in a manner that the client can understand it and take action on it? If so, I'm less hung up on exactly whether somebody uses bullet points in a presentation or does not use bullet points, or uses cat pictures to illustrate a point, or uses a chart. I'm less hung up on that as long as the effectiveness is there at the end of the day. It doesn't matter if it's how I would do it or not. It's what they're comfortable with.
So you were talking about the word delegation, and some of the things you were describing, like all the way from the car example to how people may present and talk differently. Yeah. Is it really delegation, or is it really relinquishing control? And are they really different from each other?
It's a good question. I guess, I mean, to me, delegation is, okay, I've got, here's a task that needs to be, I don't know. That's a good question.
Because I'm a control freak, and we were talking.
I think they're very similar, and I think you have to, like I said, it kind of comes back to, if you don't trust the people that you want to have do work for you, then you probably shouldn't have hired them. Then you probably made a mistake in hiring them.
Isn't that interesting? I'm thinking about all the way from when we first met all the way to now. And my biggest thing is control. And it's not control from the perspective that I don't trust the team surrounding, two of which are here with us now. And I talk about this on the show occasionally. So there's going to be no new news here. That said, what ends up happening is that I have to go back to family of origin issues, family of origin modeling. And I come from type A personality parents. And one of them was like, hey, I can only control myself. So I'm going to control everything. And I think it's great, because talk about teaching resourcefulness, talk about teaching facing adversity and problem solving and adapting in the heat of the moment. However, it leaks over into this other area of, well, of course, this is the message that we're going to have. And no, it's not like mine. And as long as you make the deadline, I'm okay. If we ever get to that crunch point, this craziness in me will come out. Like if we're beyond late, or we're close to a deadline and I feel like I'm not going to be able to sleep for some reason, that's when that old style will come out. So I know for me personally, I've had this journey around that particular trait that's very beneficial in so many ways, that is also very limiting in terms of team building, group development.
Right. And part of the challenge is, I mean, I mean, I've known you for a long time. You're very skilled. You're very talented. But at the end of the day, you're only one person, right?
One person. That's right.
And you can only scale as an individual so much.
So much.
Mm-hmm. You can. And you have to. And also, there are things that sometimes start with things that you don't really like to do. I mean, obvious ones are, bookkeeping, or administrative tasks, things like that. I mean, things that you can easily outsource. There are also things like, honestly, I'm decent at writing, but I don't love writing. So I'd rather just let somebody else do that and do a better job. And, as far as like controlling, I think what you do is maybe there's varying degrees of control that I found, right? So you can kind of control as the entrepreneur, as the business owner, you can set, okay, here's the goal. Here's the objective. At the end of the day, this is what we want to attain. This is what we're trying to get to. Here's the objective. Here's the issue that our customer is trying to solve. And as far as the specific tactical, tactical things that get us there, my hands are a little bit, I can maybe provide a little bit of guidance or some suggestions or some tips, but at the end of the day, it's like I want to have the staff take some ownership of that and help us build it. Because to be honest with you, when you're a complete control freak and it's like, okay, it's my way or the highway, this is exactly how we're doing this, and your staff doesn't feel like they have any kind of an input, they're less likely to deliver quality work when when they understand the purpose, when they feel like they're building something, they're a part of building something as opposed to just, taking an order.
Right.
And they actually they're helping create something. And so that kind of helps a little bit there, but the control thing, it is hard. It's very hard. And you are not alone. And it's not even a bad thing.
No.
To want to have control. It's not. It's just a matter of to the degree of what you have control over and what you're, just recognizing that, okay, maybe I should just like lighten up a little bit and just let her take care of it, because she's got it. She's competent. She'll do a good job. She'll do a great job, and trust that she's going to deliver the results.
Exactly.
So it can be hard.
It can be hard. And it also is really rewarding when you go, oh yeah, look, I don't have to control everything, but I get to choose what I control. And now I am controlling standards, right? As a leader in an organization, I almost think the delegation is more task oriented and the control is, are we all moving in the same direction? And are we living up to the standards we're telling people? Which makes me curious about how you and your partners, how did the three of you make sure that you have shared meaning around how work is done at NordicClick?
Well, it's not always easy when you have partners. I'll be honest with you, it's not. So I mean, really, we all have shared objectives of having, happy clients that see value in the work that we do for them. That's at the highest level. We want to help our customers find customers. That's it. If we help our customers do that, they're happy. We have some varying styles, again, of how we present and things like that. But we have, I think it's really important that you agree on the overall top level objective. It's also important that you recognize that, hey, you know what? I walk into a room, I'm like, okay, I'm not the smartest person in this room. It's like, I think sometimes the first thing you need to do is just listen. It's like we all have two ears and one mouth for a reason. And sometimes I do tend to talk a lot sometimes, but I think one of the things you really need to be able to do, and this kind of comes into play whether you have partners or not, because even if you are a solo entrepreneur, it's like, you have customers, you have somebody that you have to interact with. The first thing you should do is always just listen, and just shut up and listen for a little bit, and then think about what you're trying to accomplish and what you're trying to solve. And oftentimes the solution presents itself. And you know what? And I've also found too that over the course of 11 years, it's fine to have differences of opinion, even some conflict. It's totally fine. In fact, it's healthy. It really is. It's healthy because we're all striving toward the same goal. Basically, all three of my partners and I, it's like at this point in our careers, I'm probably unemployable. I probably am. So I mean, you would not want to hire me as an employee or some VP somewhere. It just probably wouldn't work, right? So I've gone on record as stating that hopefully, I'm sure some recruiter will see this someday and maybe they'll get them to stop calling me, which will be good. Actually. That's another story altogether. But you have to, you have to, it's okay to have some sense of conflict, because that means we're all in the same boat. We're all striving toward that same goal, and we all feel passionate about something. And it's never personal. We always try to have, make sure that we're have data, and we're making decisions based on actual data and things we can measure versus just a gut feel. Even though sometimes the gut feel still wins. Let's be honest, it does. So does that help? Did that answer?
It does. And that's interesting that you were talking about the gut versus the data.
Yeah.
Because you're right. And I want to highlight, sometimes the gut feeling wins. That is the coolest thing ever. And then you've got to figure out what the metrics are to make sure it was the right decision along the way. Just
right.
like when you make a decision based off of data, you still might have to change the decision because the data actually turns out to be different once you start doing something.
Right.
So we can't be scared away because of data in this, everybody who's listening. That's a very important piece. Helen is listening and she has a question.
Sure.
She wants to know, what are 3 important traits of a lasting, profitable business are?
All right. Well, hi, Helen. So 3 traits. Number 1, I think you have to recognize, a lesson that I kind of learned early on was that the hard way is that gross sales does not equal revenue and income. It does not. That's not what, just because you can bill something, or even just because you get paid from a client, that does not necessarily equal revenue. So what you need to run a company is you need cash. It's all about your cash flow. So when you're trying to at the earliest stages, plan out what is your cash flow strategy. Like, how much cash do you need to stay in business to keep the lights on every single month? That's one lesson right there. Number 3, I think, as I mentioned before, is there's this X factor persistence that you have to have. And so it's kind of one of those things you might not be, it's hard to teach it. It's hard to, you have to, it's kind of part of who you are, part of your upbringing, part of your life experiences, things like that. Just be persistent, because there's going to be days where it's like, you think to yourself, oh man, it'd be easier if I just quit and went back and got a corporate job. Take the easy way out. And you know what? And that's okay. If that's ultimately what you decide, that's okay, because I got nothing against the corporate world. The world needs corporate employees. I just am past the point where I want to be one of them. So you need the persistence. The other thing I think is you need to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. So when you make hiring decisions, and I don't necessarily mean smarter than, if you're a brilliant physicist and you want to hire somebody, it's like, okay, you might not find somebody who actually knows more about physics, but find somebody who's smarter than you about something that you maybe are weak at. You got to be honest with yourself about not only what you're good at, but what you're weak at. And you need to, staff appropriately, or just find a way to fill that in. So I guess that would be my third takeaway is surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. I don't remember who said this quote. You can look it up. You can Google it after the meeting. But it's something about you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with, the 5 people closest to you. And so make sure that you surround yourself with some really smart people. And that's kind of what I look for when I'm looking to hire somebody. I sit across the table from this person. I'm like, all right, yep, she sounds smarter than me, and that's kind of what I look for,
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm. You are listening to the Voice of Bold Business Radio. This is program 137 that we are doing live streaming right here with you. Survive and Thrive. Adam Proehl is our special guest today, and he is a partner at NordicClick Interactive, which is a full-service digital agency that helps clients find and grow their online channels to grow their businesses. All right, Adam, keeping going. I'm just not going to let it go. Not going to let it go. You keep talking about smarter than you. So Are you talking about smarter than you, like they actually know more stuff, or smarter than you, like they know more stuff in an area and they bring their own passion to it that is really going to add depth to everything that's going on at NordicClick?
Probably the latter.
Okay.
Probably the latter. I don't want to go too far in the self-deprecating role, but I think you need people who are, you look at them, it's like, okay, this person knows way more about paid search than I do.
Yeah.
Way more. Mm-hmm. And as a leader, you can't let your ego get in the way. of that. I've seen too many managers do that, and they don't like it when too many managers feel like they have to be the smartest person in the room. It's like, no, I don't have to be. It's like, I want somebody who's smarter than me at this, somebody who's smart. I mean, we do SEO work for our clients. And I got to tell you, the person who does technical SEO, she is way smarter than I am. She could run circles around me, and I'm good with that. I love that, and so that makes us better as a company. And so it's like, it's like, to me, it's like if you hire like that and make good decisions like that, everybody, it's kind of like a rising tide lifts all boats. It just kind of, the whole company just kind of elevates when you can do that.
I think that's really important. And it goes back to the delegation conversation. It also goes back to some of the traits that you were sharing with us at the beginning. And was there something, I'm going to switch gears just a little, and then we'll come back probably to more traits, because I like to live there and play there and explore
Okay.
there.
That's okay.
When
the trait session.
Exactly right. So I think I shared this with you when I called. I called you up,
quick commercial. NordicClick. See, yeah.
NordicClick on the glass, everybody. That's yes. I want you one of those.
I'll send you one.
That would be cool.
I'll send you one.
I wish you had more than one Batman Adam too, because that's just cool. For everybody who's listening, you can't see this, but Adam is a bobblehead Batman.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So when we turned 10, our staff didn't know quite what to get the partners, so they decided to get custom bobbleheads made. They made me in a Batman costume because I was Batman for Halloween one year, and so it's actually, I think the bobblehead, truthfully, is a little bit better looking than me, but I wish I was that good looking, but I'll take it.
Heck yeah, it's pretty awesome. Yeah. So when I first called you up, I said, hey, I think I want to talk about this. And I know you've been in business for over a decade. And did you know the stat that 4 in 100 businesses make it to that 10-year mark? And not only has NordicClick made it, they've surpassed it, right? So when you were in there, what was something that served you the first 5 years that you had to let go of in that second half to get you past this mark and to get you into the next phase of being a lasting, impactful business?
Right. Well, okay. I think, part of it kind of goes back to some of the things I was talking about earlier. Like when we first started, we did everything just because we had to. Mm-hmm. We also didn't need quite the overhead and quite the process that we do now. Process has probably been one of the biggest things. So, I mean, typically it's like, look, I've been in sales and marketing for a long time, and sometimes, process can be a hard thing, especially when you're first starting out. Those first couple of years, I mean, your business plan that first year, I'll be honest with you, your business plan is just to stay in business. Yes. It's like sometimes it's like that's what they don't teach in Harvard Business School. Mm-hmm. Like it's like literally, if I went to Harvard Business, I'd probably flunk Harvard Business School, to be honest with you, because if I went there and the prof said, come up with a business plan for your first year, it would be one line: to remain in business. That would be it, right? So you kind of do everything. You have to have the process. The other big thing is you have to be more comfortable saying no, and that's hard. When we first started out, again, our business plan, stay in business. So oftentimes what that prompts you to do is to take business opportunities that you maybe aren't the best fit, and maybe you shouldn't take. And maybe they're not big, they're small. There's nothing wrong with a small opportunity, but just make sure that it's a small opportunity, that it's a fit. And so we did that early on. I don't necessarily regret it because it did help us keep the lights on. But there does come to a point where it's like, okay, if you really want to grow and scale, then you need to focus and be able to focus and say no. Mm-hmm. And say no politely, not in a rude way, just say no politely and be able to, build up a network where it's like, if you do have to say no, it's like, hey, you know what, this is not a fit for us, but I think I know somebody who it might be a fit for, and let me refer you. And there are and you have to be okay with doing that. Because if you don't, sometimes the funny thing about, some clients, small clients, sometimes the smaller they are, the more they tend to want sometimes, not always. And that's okay, because it's like, I understand that and understand where they're at, but it's got to be a fit. it's got to be a fit both ways, for the client side and for the service provider side, which we are, whether you're an agency, an attorney, accounting firm, whatever. It's like, it has to be a fit. Otherwise, it's just not gonna, no one's gonna be happy.
Mm-hmm. Good. We went right back to where I wanted to go. And when nobody's happy, usually it's because somebody said yes, even though in spite of a weakness that they thought they could compensate for, or we just start making decisions without regard to what we are truly good at or have decided what our objectives are.
Right.
Is there a story or a time that you can share with us when that actually got in the way that helped you learn that lesson, that business story?
You realize you're asking somebody who's in his mid-40s to remember something.
I know. Look way back. I get to join the club today.
I think one of the things we learned early on is we learned that we're not a fit for we're not a good fit for startups. Mm-hmm. There are some freelancers and agencies who are. We're not quite there yet. They haven't. Oftentimes, a startup, they're going through their own challenges, trying to figure out who they are, what their brand, what their messaging is, what their focus is, because oftentimes they're trying to, they're like a dog in the front yard. It's like, oh, squirrel, oh, tennis ball, ooh, car, ooh, cat, things like that. And so trying to chase something that doesn't always work well. We had typically if a client is smaller than us, it's not going to be a good fit. Typically because they will look at us. We've had cases where it's like a small client hires us for something, and they almost look at us like as my team members as like staff augmentation. Like, hey, we just hired our marketing department. It's like, no, we're not a replacement for a full-time marketing person. We augment that because we have specialized skills that maybe a specific marketing person may not have. We've learned who we work best with and who we don't. There was a case where I almost had to, I can't say the client's name, but I almost had to, actually, I wanted to fire the client because we were having, we agreed to take over their paid search account. And, a week or so later, our person on our team, she was making some changes, and she was in there setting up the accounts and setting up the ad creative and things like that. Then, about a week later, the 75-year-old CEO and chairman of the board decides to go into AdWords and starts making changes. At that point, I'm just kind of like, so I call up the president of the company, not the CEO. I call up the president. I say, hey, you know what? We can't help you. No agency can help you. Even if you hire this internally, that internal marketing manager person you hire, or specialist, can't help you. Not if you don't trust that we know what we're doing. If the 75-year-old CEO is going to go in and make bid adjustments and change ad copy, we can't help you. And so we ended up keeping the client because they agreed. They said, yes, okay, that's fair. That's very fair. We're not letting you succeed. And so you got to look for warning signs like that. Sometimes, what I also learned early on too is that, we've gotten a lot better about the sales discovery process. Mm-hmm. And recognizing that I talked a little bit earlier about process, developing a process, and anyone who knows me well, knows I'm not like an over process type of guy. I'm not like a Six Sigma. You're shaking your head and you're right to do so.
You are not that.
but sales and marketing absolutely is a process. There is a methodology to it. Mm-hmm. One of the things that has helped is, like I said, the ability to say no. It's to recognize earlier on that you should say no. What's a good opportunity and what's not. And so typically I used to get, early on, somebody would say, hey, they'd call me up on the phone. They'd be like, yeah, cool. Hey, we need someone to manage our paid search for us. We need some SEO help. We need some help doing this. Can you build us a website? We need some help with our email program, things like that. And they look for a proposal, and I'd be like, all right, I want the business. And so I was eager for it and eager to chase it, and eager to go get it. And I would, I maybe sent out a few too many proposals. I didn't do a good enough job of saying, hey, thanks for the call. Appreciate that. Tell you what, if you have time now, let's talk about a little bit more about what it is you're looking for, what your goals are, things like that, what you're hoping to get out of this. And then, the same thing, or just say, you know what, hey, you know what, it's not a good time. Let's set up a time where we can spend an hour. I can actually talk through what your business challenges are, what you're trying to solve. What is it that keeps you up at night? What are your objectives? What are you thinking you're going to get? What does success look like to you? Basically, to me, before a proposal is sent out to a prospective client, a prospective business, you should have a very clear in terms of what success looks like for that client. And if you're not aligned on that, do not send out that proposal because you'll both end up unhappy, and
Right.
it'll be a bad experience.
And you may not even get the business. So did you see when you were able to adjust your methodology for the sales and marketing process for your team, that you actually had an increase of being able to close business from those proposals?
Yeah, I mean, it's less proposals out the door, but more business being closed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still a sales process, and you're still sometimes
Sure.
you're going to win, sometimes you're not. Sometimes
Right.
you're just not going to win. So.
Yep, exactly. And so you're spending more time thinking. You're spending more time thinking up front, digging up front, listening up front.
It's worth it.
No,
It's worth it. Yeah, I mean, and there's a series of questions to ask. So like in our particular, if you're a service provider, like an agency or something like that, one of the questions is, okay, are you working with an agency now? And if sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no. And what I honestly tend to advise people, I'm like, look, if you're working with an agency right now, it's like, I appreciate the call, thank you, but what is the issue you're having with that agency? You don't have to say who they are, but what issue are you having, and is there any way for you to work out those issues with that agency? I would say, because I typically would say, look, if you're working with an agency and you're happy with them and they're delivering the results that you are expecting, and it's a good working relationship, then you should stay with them. You shouldn't switch. If there's some reason that it's not a fit, sometimes it can tell you everything you need to know. So in our business, there was one time where a client, they went through an agency a year. They fired an agency every single year. They hired an agency, got all excited. Then at the end of the year, they basically switched agencies. That's one of those you have to really take a hard look, because it's like, okay, in the last 4 years, you've had 4 agencies. They can't all be bad.
Right.
There are other good agencies out there, not just us. And so they can't all be bad. So it's one of those things you learn to take a hard look at.
Mm-hmm. Larry's asking, and this is a great time to ask, Larry's asking, how important is it to pick the right clients to thrive and make a successful business?
Let's put it this way, it's very critical. As I'm finding in my business, if I have to choose between keeping a good client or keeping a good employee, I'm picking the employee, because that's what I need to help me build the business. So if you don't have a good client, if you're just chasing the dollar, and I mean, you want people to come to work, you want people to be happy coming to work. I mean, no, you don't need to hear them whistling as they're on their way into the door. I mean, you might just, but not everybody does.
I was going to say, I think you probably have one or two like that too, yeah. And I bet you have your days. But
you don't want people dreading the drive in. You don't want people dreading getting up in the morning, coming into work. Mm-hmm. And that is, that's everything. You have to be, I mean, it's like, there's like the no jerk rule. I mean, there's another word for it, but you'd bleep me, so I don't want to be bleeped here.
That's right.
And so just find out. I mean, it's really important when you're looking at this client. It's not so much what product do they sell. Are they in a hot space? Is it something that's in your core competency? Is it something you guys can actually do? But also just, okay, who is going to be our main interface? Mm-hmm. And what are the expectations? And how do I help this person succeed? How do I help this marketing manager? How do I help her look good to her boss and get paid and things like that? How do I help her do that? And so it's understanding a lot of those nuances of just, what does that organization look like that you're wanting to do business with, and whether you're a fit or not. And so sometimes you are and sometimes you're not, and it's okay if you're not a fit. And in those particular cases, I have had cases where it's like, okay, I've said to somebody, hey, you know what, we're not a fit for this. Mm-hmm. And I've recommended somebody else, and they've been very grateful, and they've just said, yeah, totally. It's they've come back later with something that is a fit for me. So it's a win. Now that's even harder to do when you're talking about an existing client, because a lot of times in our business and in many businesses, there's kind of what you call a land and expand type of strategy. It might be a client where it starts out as a small engagement. We've done a lot of things that way, where we started out as a small engagement for a client. But we look at the small engagement and we ask ourselves, okay, does this, yeah, it's small right now, it's just an audit, or it's just a small one-time project that's only going to last for a few months. Does this have the potential to be something bigger long-term? If it's a fit, if we do a great job, things like that. So we look at that. That's one of the things we look at. And one hard lesson I did learn was, if you have an existing client, oftentimes, like in our business, if you have a big client, chances are there's multiple agencies involved.
Mm-hmm.
There usually always is. And you know what? There's always some overlap between what the agency's capabilities are.
Yep.
Yes, we're an agency. We do search. This other agency over here, they do development, but they also have some people that can do search. So technically on that Venn diagram, there's some overlap there. And so it's kind of one of those things you have to get over it. And you have to focus on what that client has hired you to do. The client's hired us to do search. If they want to hire somebody else to do their social media, to their development, you have to be, and we're not actually good at that.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be, the challenging part is to not feel threatened and be honest with a client. I actually had a client one time just say to me, and she was absolutely right. And it was kind of an awakening to me because we had fallen into that trap of saying, yeah, we could do that too. Yeah, we could do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and then the problem is we could do it, but it wasn't our core focus. And maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, we were a 6, whereas they probably could have hired somebody who was an 8 or a 9 or a 10. And so finally, one time she said to me, she goes, Adam, if we ask you to do something and you tell us that it's not really your sweet spot or it's not your core competency, I don't see that as a weakness. If nothing else, I see it as a strength, because I appreciate the fact that you're being honest with me by saying, hey, you know what, we're probably not going to be the best choice for you on this. You'd be better off looking for somebody else, or maybe I know somebody who can help you with this. And it's a tactic a strategy that I've stayed with since then. And I'm glad I have.
I think it's more than a strategy. I think it's if it's not your company value, it's one of your personal values, because it's come up now 3 different times. So everybody listening, I want you to take a pause. Can you find the 3 times in the interview so far where Adam has mentioned 2 really important things? The importance of, when there's a problem, asking, what is the problem? Because when there's a problem, the easiest way to solve it is to just straight up say, I see something here. What's going on? So we can do something about it. And maybe we can't do something about it, but at least we know, whether we're talking to each other internally, whether we're talking to clients, whether
Right.
Your favorite example was the one where the call, hey, we've had 4 agencies in 4 years, and now we want you to be number 5. It's like, what? And
Well, they didn't offer that up. I had to probe a little bit.
I know. And of course I'm summarizing.
If I had not asked the question,
yes,
then I would have been victim number 5.
Yes. Yeah. And being able to know if somebody calls you and says, hey, I'm ready to leave. Why? What's the reason? What's going on? And the fact that you said, look, if you have a working relationship that's making progress, how about if you go talk to them? You didn't say that, but that's what I heard you say. Just go talk to them, figure it out. It's not that hard. I mean, in our world today, it's easy to go. It can become very transactional. It can become very commoditized in terms of price or place or whatever it is. And when we stop and we go a little bit deeper than that, I'm seeing some of the reasons, just in the language that you're using, the reasons why you are successful as an individual leading this organization, and your team is successful as well, because it is what it is, and you know how you do business. And when everybody holds that standard of, here's how we do business, amazing things can happen.
It can.
Amazing
it can.
And you trust yourself. This is another thing I'm noticing, totally unrelated to the 3 things before. So now we're switching topics. You trust yourself. And I think that's a pretty cool thing too. Have you always been that way? Did you have to learn that?
I suppose I think I don't know if it's trust or if it's just confidence. I think you have to,
ooh, that's an interesting distinction.
I haven't always been, I suppose maybe I haven't always been confident. I mean, we all have a little bit of an imposter syndrome where it's like, well, dude, what am I doing here? Why am I here? Why should anybody pay attention to me? But yeah, I suppose, I guess I do trust that, I guess I do trust myself. I know, I mean, one of the biggest funny thing is, one of the things that I've always been, well, it's one of the things I look for in people too. One of my old boss at Digital River, he said this to one of my peers at the time, and she was in his office, and they were talking about, goals for the next quarter, the revenue goals for the next quarter. And then he looks at her and he says, look, and Adam's got a big number to hit. And right now, I have no idea how he's going to hit that number. I have no idea. I don't think he knows how he's going to hit the number. But I do know that at the end of the day, he's going to hit it, because somehow, some way, he always finds a way. And I'm like, oh, that was like the best compliment I ever got, because it was like, okay, because you're right. Sometimes I feel like I have no idea. I don't know what I'm doing. So it kind of comes down to that, talking about persistence before. You just have to be persistent.
Mm-hmm.
You have to trust that you have to trust that you're going to find a way. You also have to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, and just kind of take ego out of the equation. At the end of the day, we're trying to solve a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really care who gets credit for it. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
If the person sitting across the table from me comes up with the idea, great. I'm not going to dismiss it just because it's not my idea. I'm like, right. He came up with a great idea. Let's use it. Hey, this guy over here, he came up with a fantastic idea. Let's maybe take it and tweak it just a little bit here and see what we can do.
Yeah. So I'm a firm believer in, I never have the best ideas. I have the starter ideas.
Yeah. I have the stupid ideas. I'm like, hey, here's a stupid idea. Here's my stupid idea. Let's see what we can do with it.
Exactly. And if nobody else has an idea, at least there's one. Confidence or not, trust or not, you're always funny. I have to tell you that.
Funny looking.
Well, no, I don't necessarily think that, but I do think you have a good streak of a sense of humor, and you can tell that in, if anybody goes to your website that's watching, it shows up. I mean, it shows up in the copy on the website. It shows up in the conversation that we're having here. It's just overall pretty darn cool. Darn cool.
Darn cool.
Darn cool. That's exactly right. Okay. Knowing that you have a team that augments your strengths and your partner's strengths and clients that you're serving. And at the end of the day, you've got the high objective. How can we help them do what they need to do, which is to grow their business using this the digital platforms. When you've got, and technology is changing so fast, especially in your world. How do you stay relevant, and how do you stay on top of all of those quickly changing things to know you've got this?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think, there are some things that are fundamental. And so I actually, like, because you mentioned early on in the intro that I'm speaking, I do speak at quite a few conferences. One of my favorite topic that I just got to speak on about 2 weeks ago was a session.
PubCon, or was that a different one?
What's that?
Was that PubCon?
No, it was SMX West. It was out in San Jose. So Search Marketing Expo. So there, I just gave them a plug. So I'm at PubCon in 2 weeks. So they both get a plug. Okay.
Good. Okay.
One of my favorite talks was talking about, I had 20 minutes, and I was on a panel called, there was two other very smart speakers. The panel title was called The Art and Science of Ad Creative. Okay. And so my specific topic, I set the tone. It was 7 classic ad principles and how they apply today, how they applied then and how they apply today. And so if you take marketing down to, there's a lot of fundamental human psychology in marketing and just understanding that. And then it really comes down to understanding that and then understanding how these tactics play today. So for example, one thing I would recommend, it's like, this really kind of hit home with me like 4 or 5 years ago. We bought a new house like 6 years ago now. And then I was like, if you've ever moved to a new house, especially after you've been married for a certain period of time, you've got boxes everywhere and storage and stuff in storage. So over time, you go through these boxes, decide what to throw, what to keep. Well, in one of the boxes, I found gold. I found some old college marketing books from like 1990, 1991 that were required reading that I didn't. And so I found a 1981 edition, I think it was 81 edition or 85 edition of Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. I found my 1981 copy of the book Positioning. I found an old copy of the book Influence. These are all classic marketing principles, and you're reading this stuff and it's like, oh my God, this stuff applies today. So Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, it's basically, okay, people like to talk about themselves. Let them. And so they're basically be empathetic and try to really understand what it is they want. They don't care about your company. They don't care about your profits. They care about what they want. Mm-hmm. And so you fast forward to today and the tools and technologies that are available. It's like, well, how does that apply? It does. There's just a lot more tools to be able to, accomplish those objectives. So just go back and understand what those are. There are some core fundamental principles of sales and marketing, human psychology. Those haven't changed. And so if you have a good understanding of those, because you're right, there's a lot of new stuff. And sometimes there's things where it's like, okay, yeah, this is new, but it doesn't necessarily apply to your business. It really doesn't. I'm sorry, but if you are a B2B plastics manufacturer, you have no need to be on Snapchat and snapping all day long. You just don't. I'm not on Snapchat, okay? I would only do it if I really wanted to get back at my kids for something. That's the only time I would do it.
Okay, so we're talking about thinking and we're talking about knowing, and it goes back to what you were saying at the beginning and in the middle, and even just fairly recently about what's a fit and recognizing how to filter that out. What about boldness, right? There's an element of being bold to say, I'm going to be a business owner. And then it's bold to say, holy cow, we're taking our lifestyle and growing this thing. And holy cow, we're over 10 years old. Yeah. What are we going to do now? Why is it bold to think like that? What makes it exciting?
I'll tell you what, one of the things so when you sign up to run a business and be an entrepreneur and you think about these things, there's a risk reward, right?
Yeah.
And so I'll be honest with you, in order to justify the risk, the reward has to be there. It does. Because there are nights at the end of the day, it's like, look, if my business and the partners, it's ultimately tied to my life. Mm-hmm. Ultimately it's ultimately tied to my own personal property, my own home, so guess what? Myself and my two business partners, we're liable. We're the ones on the hook, ultimately, for the success or the failure of the business and things like that. And so that's a motivating factor. And so, oftentimes I kind of snicker. I won't get political at all, but anytime any politician, I don't care what side of the aisle they're on, anytime they want to talk about understanding the needs of small business, unless they've actually laid awake at night sweating a payroll, they don't know. They don't know what goes through the mind of a small business owner. And so it's thinking about things like that. So yeah, just being able to do it, being able to get out there and take that chance, it is bold. There's a quote that I tend to look at every once in a while when I need inspiration. And I don't know who wrote it. I think it's officially credited as anonymous or unknown, but it's a great quote. It says, entrepreneurship is spending a few years of your life doing what most people won't, so that you can spend the rest of it doing what they can't. And you got to think about that for a second. So it's like, okay, yeah, you're right. Most people probably won't do what you really have to do. It's like, okay, yeah, I got to take out that home equity loan. I got to basically sink a lot of money into this business. I got to spend a lot of time. I got to spend nights. I got to spend weekends. I got to spend some time away from the family. I have to give up something. I have to give up, I have to give up golf. I have to give up TV. I have to give up something so that I have time to do this and make this work. I have to travel a lot. I have to spend a lot of time like stressing and thinking about this stuff. You have to spend some time, be prepared to spend some time doing that in order to kind of get that over the hump. It's just, unless you get really lucky, and there's some that don't. I mean, there's exceptions, of course, but that wasn't the case for us. We had to spend a lot of time doing that.
Well, and I think that's a really important point. You're right. Everybody's journey is going to be their own. The things that we face will be different. Yet when we take the time, like right here, when we take the time to share and talk and explore, somebody might go, oh, cool, that's a starter idea. Or, hey, this is the leg up. This will fit into what my starter idea was. And that's what this program is all about, Adam. So I'm really glad that you were here today and that we get to not only pick your brain and learn some of your wisdom, laugh some as well.
No, thank you for having me. It was awesome. So is our time almost at an end now?
It is. I have to do the close. I mean, we are there. We are there.
Okay.
And I'm not even going to do a quick rundown because I just want you to hit the back button, your scroller, your 15-second reverse on iTunes, whatever it is, and whenever you need to in this program, because there are so many nuggets and pieces of wisdom that not only are inspiring, also every single one of us can go, yeah, we've been there. We've been in that day that all we want to do is get to tomorrow. We've been in that day where we've had more success than we could have ever imagined because we set it up and we did the thinking on the front side. We put out the intent and we know we don't have all the answers. So how cool is it to have that spectrum? And so thank you for that. This is Voice of Bold Business Radio, program 137. Survive and Thrive. You can find the program notes probably tonight, definitely by tomorrow morning at the latest, at voiceofboldbusiness.com/P137. That's voiceofboldbusiness.com/P for program 137. You can also search the website Survive and Thrive to get to the program once you get to the website. Also at the website, what you really need to know about is where to go listen to other Voice of Bold Business programs, because Adam's wisdom is amazing. And we get to learn from so many people who are willing to share their stories, share their thoughts, and build ideas with us, which is what it's all about. It's all about that, being leaders, stepping out of our comfort zone, figuring out a new place to learn outside the norm of where we would normally go to develop ourselves, to be able to develop our people, and to be able to grow our businesses. We want to know from you your stories and your experiences, even if you're in year 3, even if you're in 4 months at the 4-month mark, even if you're at 25 years. What you're doing today in your role is what it means to be a leader. And your successes can be shared to help other people be successful, because it's through our stories and conversation that we are able to decide what it means to be effective leaders today. We want to make sure that you are doing the things that you need to do to survive and thrive.
Subscribe at thevoiceofboldbusiness.com and get more information, program notes, and past episodes. Bold leaders approach each situation and focus on action to achieve a higher level of leadership. Jessica Dewell, your business advocate, is the host of the Voice of Bold Business Radio. Thank you for joining us.